John 1:48. Dicit ei Nathanael, unde me nosti? Respondit Iesus et dixit ei, priusquam te Philippus vocaret, cum esses sub ficu vidi te. Nathanael says to him, that is to Jesus, "From where or how do you know me?" Jesus replied and said to him, "Before Philip was calling you, when you were under the fig tree, I saw you." Here Nathanael and Jesus are continuing their fascinating conversation, and there's a number of interesting features for us to note in the Latin as well. First up is unde, literally from where, but in English we can get away with saying idiomatically, how, by what means do you know me? But here the Latin translator is following quite closely the Greek text, which says literally, from where? From what context? From what sequence of events do you know me? Nosti also requires some comment. Nosti is actually a syncopated or shortened or compressed form of novisti. Novisti, that is second person singular, perfect active indicative, formed on the stem novi from this verb nosco, noscere, novi, notum, to know or recognize someone or something. The key thing to notice here is the whole perfect stem and pluperfect forms as well of this verb ought to be translated or understood in the present tense in English, even though their forms are in the perfect or pluperfect. If you want to say in Latin, I know you, you're not going to say nosco, you're going to say novi. And that's simply because of an interesting semantic feature of this verb, which is Romans understood it to mean, I know you now because I have come to know you in the past. So novi doesn't mean I did know, but I do know now. And noveram, for instance, the first person singular pluperfect active indicative, would not mean I had known, but I did know. That is, the pluperfect supplies, the pluperfect in Latin supplies the perfect in English for this verb, and the perfect in Latin supplies the present in English. So nosti, which is a form of novisti, that's just been shortened for convenience. You can see it if we just drop out the V and the I here. Nosti means you know me now because you have come to know me in the past. So we just translate with the present tense in English. How do you know me? Jesus replied and said to him, before Philip called you, when you were still under the fig tree, fiku, vidi te, I saw you. Why subjunctive verbs here? This is a good question to ask yourself. What's the reason for the subjunctive mood in this case? Well, the subjunctive mood is activated or caused by this adverb priusquam. Priusquam could initiate sentences in both the indicative and in the subjunctive mood in classical Latin. And when it initiated sentences in the subjunctive mood, typically there was a sense of anticipation. That is, this is a thing that's still to come, it hasn't happened yet, or it's sort of hypothetical. Over time, that sense sort of faded away, but people continue to use priusquam with the subjunctive anyway, with no real distinction in meaning from the indicative. And that's where we find ourselves in the time of this Vulgate translator. So don't be too bothered by the subjunctive. It doesn't really affect the meaning in English, but it does give us an opportunity to talk about the sequence of tenses. Because we want to ask, okay, not only why is this subjunctive, but why is it the imperfect subjunctive, as opposed to some other tense of the subjunctive. We don't have time to explain the whole sequence of tenses. You should look it up if you feel foggy in your grammar of choice. But what we can point out here is that according to the rule of the sequence of tenses, vidi, as a perfect indicating simple past, is a historical tense, and so it needs to be followed by a historical tense in the subordinate clause, which will have the subjunctive mood because of priusquam. So we've got the perfect indicative here, and it needs to be matched by a tense which can, in our case, indicate an event that happens at the same time as or subsequent to the action of the main verb. And since Jesus is saying, I saw you before Philip called you, we need to use the imperfect subjunctive to indicate time subsequent to the time of the main verb. I saw you and then Philip called you, in other words.